The Brazil vs Germany football match that took place on 8 July 2014 at the Estádio Mineirão in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, was the first semi-final match of the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Both Brazil and Germany reached the semi-finals with an undefeated record in the competition, with the Brazilians' quarter-finals with Colombia causing them to lose striker Neymar to injury, and defender and captain Thiago Silva to accumulation of yellow cards. Despite the absences, a close match was expected given both teams were traditional FIFA World Cup forces, sharing 8 tournaments won and having previously met in the 2002 FIFA World Cup Final, where Brazil won 2-0 and earned the 5th title. This match, however, ended in a stunning loss for Brazil. Germany led 5-0 at half-time, with 4 goals scored within 6 minutes, and subsequently brought the score up to 7-0 in the second half. Brazil scored a goal in the last minute, ending the match 7-1. Germany's Toni Kroos was selected as the man of the match. The game marked a number of tournament records. Germany's win marked the largest margin of victory in a FIFA World Cup semi-final. The game saw Germany overtake Brazil as the highest-scoring team in World Cup tournament history and become the first team to reach 8 World Cup finals. Miroslav Klose scored his 16th career World Cup goal and surpassed Brazil's own Ronaldo as the tournament's all-time record goal scorer. Brazil's loss broke the 62-match home unbeaten streak in competitive matches going back to Copa America 1975 and equaled the biggest margin of defeat, a 6-0 loss to Uruguay in 1920. Ultimately, the match was described as a national humiliation. The game was subsequently referred to by the international media as the Mineirazo, evoking the spirit of national shame brought by the Maracanazo, in which Brazil unexpectedly lost the 1950 FIFA World Cup on home soil to Uruguay. Brazil subsequently lost the third-place playoff to Netherlands, and Germany went on to win the World Cup for the 4th time after defeating Argentina in the 2014 FIFA World Cup Final. Background: Brazil were hosting the FIFA World Cup for the second time, and had won the tournament on 5 previous occasions. Germany were a 3-time winner but had not won the tournament in 24 years. Brazil were in the semi-finals for the first time since 2002, from which they emerged victorious and subsequently won the tournament against Germany, while Germany were in a record-breaking 4th consecutive semi-final. Both teams had entered the tournament among the favorites to win, with Germany ranked 2nd and Brazil ranked 3rd in the FIFA World Rankings. Brazil's route to the semi-final included a group stage with Croatia, Mexico and Cameroon in Group A, from which they advanced with 7 points before beating Chile in the round of 16 in a penalty shootout, and Colombia in the quarter-finals. Germany had been drawn with Portugal, Ghana and the United States in Group G, and advanced with 7 points before beating Algeria in the round of 16 and France in the quarter-finals. The two teams had met in 21 previous matches, but their only previous encounter in the single elimination round of the World Cup was the final of the 2002 FIFA World Cup, which Brazil won 2-0. Brazil defender and captain Thiago Silva was suspended for the match due to accumulation of yellow cards. Despite an appeal against the suspension by the Brazilian Football Confederation, forward Neymar was also unavailable for the match, having been sidelined for the rest of the tournament after suffering a fractured vertebra in the quarter-final match against Colombia. Dante and Bernard, making the first starts of the tournament, replaced Thiago Silva and Neymar respectively, with Luis Gustavo replacing Paulinho in defensive midfield. Germany were unchanged from the quarter-final. Goalkeeper Julio Cesar and stand-in captain David Luiz paid tribute to Neymar by holding his shirt during the national anthem ceremony. Even with the absences, analysts expected a close match, feeling the home crowd could provide an advantage. Both teams had reached the semi-finals undefeated in the previous matches of the tournament. The officiating was led by Mexican referee Marco Antonio Rodriguez in what proved to be the final match of his career. First half, both teams started with attacking play, with Brazilian Marcelo's shot going wide in the 3rd minute and German Sami Khedira's shot in the 7th minute being inadvertently blocked by his teammate Toni Kroos. In the 11th minute, the Germans scored from the first corner of the game. Thomas Müller escaped his mark by David Luiz in the penalty box, and Toni Kroos's delivery found him wide open for a side-footed shot into the net. In the following minutes, Brazil tried to respond immediately, but their attacking forays came to naught, although Philipp Lahm needed to deliver a brilliant tackle to keep Marcelo from setting up a chance in the penalty box. Instead, in the 23rd minute, Germany scored again after Kroos and Müller combined to set up Miroslav Klose, who scored on the rebound after his initial shot was saved by goalkeeper Julio Cesar. It was Klose's 16th goal at a World Cup, surpassing Ronaldo as the all-time World Cup top scorer. Klose's goal initiated a flurry of German scoring as Brazil appeared to lose control of the game. Kroos added 2 more goals in quick succession. In the 24th minute, he volleyed home from Lahm's cross while unmarked. Then in the 26th minute, just a few seconds after Brazil's kick-off, Kroos caught Fernandinho in possession in his own half, then linking up with Khedira to evade the Brazilian defense, leading to Kroos scoring again with a simple finish just 70 seconds after his first goal. Khedira himself scored in the 29th minute after exchanging passes with Mesut Ozil. All 5 of Germany's first half goals came within the first half hour, with 4 of them coming within 6 minutes. Brazil had no shots on target in the first half. Many Brazil supporters in the crowd were reduced to tears and a state of shock such that the crowd's first serious dissent at the Brazil team came only at half-time. The resulting fights in the Mineirão stands forced the military police to send a special forces squad into the stadium. Second half, Brazil's substitution of Paulinho and Ramirez for Fernandinho and Hulk resulted in them threatening more from the restart. They forced Germany goalkeeper Manuel Neuer to save shots from Oscar, Paulinho and Fred. By the 60th minute, the Germans came close to scoring again, with Julio Cesar denying Müller twice. Another German goal indeed came in the 69th minute. Lahm picked out substitute André Schürrle, who was left unmarked and side-footed the ball in from close range. Schürrle was not done yet. In the 79th minute, he received Müller's cross from the left and hit a powerful shot over Julio Cesar at the near post. At this point, with the score at 7-0, the remaining home fans gave the Germans a standing ovation as they applauded Schürrle's goal and started cheering for Germany's passes. Close to the end, Ozil received a through ball but barely missed the chance to make it 8 seconds later. Brazil broke away and Oscar scored in the 90th minute to make it 7-1. But it was no consolation, as the final score matched Brazil's worst ever loss and ended a run of 62 competitive home matches unbeaten for Brazil. The Brazilian players left the pitch in tears to a chorus of boos. Toni Kroos was selected man of the match, with 3 shots, 2 goals, 93% pass accuracy, 1 assist and 2 chances created. Brazilian striker Fred, who was replaced by Willian in the 70th minute, minute received a particularly hostile reaction from the home fans. According to Opta-Sports, Fred failed to make a single tackle, cross, run or interception during the match, and actually spent the majority of his time in possession of the ball on the center spot due to 6 restarts. Details, statistics, records. The game's result was the biggest winning margin in a World Cup semi-final or final. The outcome was also the worst loss by a host country in World Cup history, as the 6-goal difference doubled the previous record margin. By the end of the game, a total of 167 goals had been scored at the 2014 World Cup, the second most out of single World Cup after 1998 with 171 goals. With 18 total shots on target, the match had the joint most shots on target of any match in 90 minutes at the 2014 World Cup. The match also had the fastest 4 goals scored in World Cup history, with Germany scoring in the span of 6 minutes in 1954. Austria took 7 minutes, and in 1982, Hungary also took 7 minutes to score 4 goals. Germany equaled the record for most goals scored against the host nation of the World Cup, with Austria defeating Switzerland 7-5 in the 1954 World Cup. Germany also overtook Brazil to become the all-time highest-scoring team in FIFA World Cup history, the total of 223 at full-time, passing Brazil's 221. Before the match, Brazil and Germany were even with 7 World Cup finals each. The German victory made them the only squad to reach 8 finals. For Brazil, the result became one of the 2 worst losses, equaling a 6-0 defeat to Uruguay in 1920, and was the worst ever defeat at home. The previous worst defeat at home was a 5-1 defeat by Argentina in Rio de Janeiro in 1939. The loss broke Brazil's 62-match home unbeaten streak in competitive matches, dating back to the 1-3 loss to Peru in the 1975 Copa América. This match was also played at Estádio Mineirão in Belo Horizonte. The last time Brazil had lost to World Cup semi-final was in 1938 in a dramatic game against Italy in Marseille, and had emerged victorious from this stage the previous 6 times they had reached it. Since the loss in 1974 against Netherlands was not formally a semi-final, Brazil had never before conceded 7 goals at home, although they once conceded 8 goals in a 4-8 friendly defeat to Yugoslavia on 3 June 1934. The last time they conceded at least 5 was in a 6-5 win in the 1938 World Cup versus Poland. At least 4 was in a 2-4 defeat at the 1954 World Cup against Hungary. Brazil's previous largest losing deficit at the World Cup prior to the match was 3 goals, which came in the 0-3 defeat to France in the 1998 final. The game's outcome also marked Brazil's worst result against Germany, passing a 0-2 defeat in a 1986 friendly. For Germany, the final result meant that, for the 4th straight time, they were positioned among the tournament's top 3 teams. Moreover, the victory allowed the Germans to become the first side to reach 8 World Cup finals. The match was a record 12th time a German team played in a semi-final. Germany became the first team to score 7 goals in a World Cup semi-final. The last time a team scored 6 goals was West Germany in 1954 versus Austria, same as in both semi-finals in 1930. It was Germany's highest half-time lead in a World Cup match, with the previous best being 4-0 against Saudi Arabia in 2002. The match finished 8-0, which is Germany's biggest World Cup victory. Only two teams have previously trailed by at least 5 goals at half-time, Zaire and Haiti. The 7 goals scored by Germany reflected a better goal-scoring record in the World Cup finals than that of 28 other nations in the respective history of the World Cup. Germany's Miroslav Klose equaled the Brazilian Cafu as the player with most matches being on the winning side at the World Cup, with 16 victories. Klose played his 23rd World Cup match, equaling Paolo Maldini on second place on most World Cup matches, with only Lothar Matthaus remaining with more. Klose has played in more knockout games than Matthaus, a Cafu 13, and also became the only player to take part in 4 World Cup semi-finals. In the match, he broke the record for the most goals scored at the World Cup with 16, overtaking Brazil's Ronaldo's total of 15. Ronaldo was in attendance at the match as a commentator. Thomas Muller's goal was Germany's 2000th in the history of the national team. Muller became the 3rd player in history to score 5 or more goals in 2 different World Cups, and the 2nd player to score 5 or more goals in consecutive World Cups. Toni Kroos's first half double scored in 69 seconds was the fastest pair of goals scored in World Cup history by the same player. Reactions: professional. According to reports, after Germany had scored the 7th goal, Neymar, who was watching the match on television, switched off his set and went to play poker. Brazil manager Luis Felipe Scolari said the result was the worst loss by a Brazilian national team ever, and accepted all responsibility for the defeat. He called it the worst day of my life, and resigned after the tournament. Stand-in captain David Luiz and goalkeeper Julio Cesar both offered apologies to the people of Brazil. Fred, who was booed by Brazilian fans during the match, said it was the worst defeat in his and his teammates' careers. He later announced his retirement from international football following the tournament. Recovering from his injury, Neymar expressed his support to his teammates and, despite the 7-1 score, said he was proud to be part of this team. During the match, the German team seemed to realize that what was unfolding was not a normal football event. In a post-match statement, Mats Hummels said that the German team had decided that they did not want to humiliate the Brazilians during the second half and after the match. We just made it clear that we had to stay focused and not try to humiliate them. We said we had to stay serious and concentrate at half-time. That's something you don't have to show on the pitch if you are playing. You have to show the opponent respect, and it was very important that we did this and didn't try to show some magic or something like this. It was important we played our game for 90 minutes. Accordingly, the Germans cut theatrics from the goal celebrations. Arms were raised, but there was no jumping or screaming after scoring. Coach Joachim Low stated his team had a clear, persistent game plan, and as they realized Brazil were cracking up, they took advantage. As in contrast to the Brazilians' nervousness, the German players were extremely cool. Toni Kroos, who was chosen as man of the match, added that as the Germans felt that in no game of the Cup played the best, the squad entered with the tactical knowledge on how to counter Brazil. We took all the balls and scored the goals. Low also declared the team had no euphoria during or after the game, as they knew that the 7-1 win meant nothing for the upcoming final, saying, "We didn't celebrate. "We were happy, but we still have a job to do." Following the match, the German players and managers offered words of consolation to the Brazilians. Lone players Mertesacker and Philip Lahm even compared the pressure on the Brazilian team and resulting heartbreaking defeat with Germany's own when they hosted the 2006 FIFA World Cup and also lost in the semi-finals. Lahm added in an interview after the tournament that he had felt very uneasy during the match and not at all euphoric, since the Brazilian team had made mistakes that don't usually happen at this level, and Mertesacker noted that despite featuring the Germans at the top of the game, even from the bench, was crazy to watch. Kroos stated that, despite Brazil having good players, they couldn't show the best performance due to all the outside pressure, and expressed faith in them returning with a good squad. Lowe observed in the immediate aftermath of the match that the Brazilian people were applauding his team. Later, the Brazilian newspaper O Globo expressed appreciation for the gestures of the German players, calling them world champions of sympathy. Brazilian footballing icon Pelé tweeted, "I always said that football is a box of surprises. Nobody in this world expected this result," followed by, "We'll try to get the 6th title in Russia." Congratulations to Germany. Carlos Alberto Torres, the captain of Brazil's winning team in 1970, said that the country lost due to a feeling of "we've already won." He added that Germany played how I like to see and Scolari's tactics for this match were suicidal. Argentina coach Alejandro Sabella struggled to explain Brazil's loss, saying, "Football is illogical." In contrast, famed Argentinian striker Diego Maradona was seen singing a song mocking the Brazilian defeat. Society. In Germany, the match's coverage by ZDF set a record for the country's most-watched TV broadcast ever, with 32.57 million viewers, beating the Germany v. Spain match at the 2010 FIFA World Cup. This record was beaten 5 days later with the final. In contrast, despite a weekly spike in audience, the broadcast by Brazilian Rede Globo saw the viewers' total fall with each German goal. The match was the most discussed sports game ever on Twitter, with over 35.6 million tweets, surpassing Super Bowl 48, with 24.9 million tweets during the game. At first, incentive hashtags such as #PrayForBrazil were common, but once Germany built a 5-0 lead, Brazilian users instead lent the frustration into self-deprecatory humor, comparing Germany's goals with the Volkswagen goal car and stating the Brazilian team looked like 11 Freds. Other Twitter users compared Germany's dominating performance to the military efforts during World War II and the Holocaust, for example, dubbing it the Holocaust. Bung Mokhtar Raden, a member of Parliament of Malaysia, came under heavy criticism from the Malaysian public and the German ambassador, Holger Michael, for posting such a comment. The president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, stated on Twitter following the match that, like all Brazilians, I am deeply saddened by our loss. The Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yigal Parmor, mentioned the match when countering Brazil's claim that his country was using disproportionate force in the Gaza conflict, saying, "This is not football. In football, when a game ends in a draw, you think it is proportional, but when it finishes 7-1, it's disproportionate." Due to the pressure on the home nation Brazil to win the World Cup and the subsequent shock of the loss, the media and FIFA dubbed the game the Mineirazo, meaning the Mineirão blow, evoking the Maracanazo in which Brazil were defeated on home soil by outsiders Uruguay in the de facto final of the 1950 World Cup. The daughter of goalkeeper Moakia Barbosa, who was scapegoated for the 1950 defeat, said the loss was enough to redeem her father's legacy, while Uruguayan striker Alcides Gija, responsible for the cup-winning goal of the Maracanazo, felt that though both games were traumatic, they could not be compared, as the 1950 match had more at stake. Following the match, German fans were escorted out of the stadium by police, and police were put on alert for possible riots. Observers noted that while the German supporters had shown respect to the defeated hosts, Argentinian fans were celebrating Brazil's elimination. There were reports of a mass robbery at a fan party in Rio de Janeiro and of fans setting fire to Brazilian flags in the streets of São Paulo even before the match was over. A number of buses were burned across São Paulo and an electronics store looted. Brazilian newspapers greeted the result with headlines such as "The biggest shame in history," "A historical humiliation," and "Brazil is slain." German paper Bild heralded the 7-1 madness by the Lightning DFB team. The French L'Equipe simply said "Le désastre." Writing for Sky Sports, Matthew Stanger described the game as the ultimate embarrassment, while Miguel Delaney of ESPN referred to the match as the Mineirazo, echoing the term invented for the event by the South American Spanish-language press. Barney Ronay in The Guardian described it as the most humiliating World Cup host nation defeat of all time, and Joe Callahan of The Independent described it as the darkest night in Brazil's footballing history. Wire Davies, the BBC's Rio de Janeiro correspondent, said of Brazilians' reactions at the stadium and fan parks that the collective sense of shock, embarrassment and national humiliation across Brazil was impossible to ignore. Football journalist Tim Vickery postulated that the all-time low the result might be the catalyst for overdue reform of Brazilian club football, which in his opinion had become complacent in comparison to other countries, resting on the laurels of the national team's history of success. In his words, this was a chance to recapture parts of its historic identity and reframe them in a modern, global context. Reports had many comparisons with the Maracanazo that cost Brazil a title at home in 1950, with the Brazilian media even considering that the 2014 defeat redeemed the 1950 squad. Analysts deconstructed all the tactical and technical deficiencies that led to the blowout result. Scolari still relied on the team that won the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, despite many players going through dry spells, and most of them not having any World Cup experience. Brazil had not played particularly well during the group stage and first two knockout games, relying heavily upon Neymar in attack, and the flaws were exposed in the semi-finals where they faced a much tougher adversary in Germany. Neymar was such a focal point that the team barely trained any formations without him. In his absence, Scolari replaced Neymar with Bernard to maintain the attacking tradition of Brazilian football. Instead of the logical call was surely to bring in an extra midfielder against the Germans. The assistant coaches even supported bringing in the more defensive-minded Ramirez and Willian. Thus Fernandinho and Luis Gustavo were overwhelmed in dealing the Germany midfield trio of Toni Kroos, Sami Khedira and Bastian Schweinsteiger. The defense that had already been questioned in previous games collapsed as Dante was proven to be an inadequate replacement for the suspended Silva, while David Luiz made uncharacteristic errors during the semi-final. Other errors included setting up Marcelo to a more attacking player, while Gustavo was tasked with covering him, and the ineffective role of Fred, who was often regarded as a tactical striker rather than goal-scoring striker. Aftermath. Brazil finished fourth after being defeated 0-3 in the third-place play-off by the Netherlands on the 12th of July. The defeat matched Brazil's previous worst loss at the World Cup, 0-3 to France in the 1998 final, and meant that they conceded a total of 14 goals throughout the tournament, which was the most Brazil had conceded in a single tournament, the most ever conceded by a World Cup host. host, and the most conceded by any team since Belgium allowed 15 during the 1986 tournament. Germany went on to win the World Cup for the fourth time, the first as a unified nation, after defeating Argentina 1-0 in the final match on the 13th of July at the Maracanã. Germany had the support of the Brazilian crowd despite having eliminated the home team. Given Brazil has a long-standing football rivalry with neighbors Argentina, the two consecutive losses, Brazil's first consecutive home defeat since 1940, led to coach Luiz Felipe Scolari's resignation on the 15th of July. 2 weeks later, the Brazilian Football Confederation brought back Dunga as head coach of the Brazil national team. He had managed the team from 2006 until 2010, being dismissed following a 2-1 loss to the Netherlands in the 2010 FIFA World Cup quarterfinals. He was dismissed for a second time, however, following Brazil crashing out at the group stage of the Copa América Centenario in the United States 2 years later. Later that summer, before the two teams faced each other again, this time at the Maracanã in the gold medal match at the Rio 2016 Summer Olympics, opposing coaches Rogério Macael of Brazil and Horst Hrubesch of Germany publicly downplayed the fact that the Olympic final was a rematch of the World Cup semi-final.